Paul Harrell, weekdays from 4 to 6. Learn more at paulharrell.com.
The program, it is hour number 2. My name is Paul. Thank you guys so much for being with us. I have a little bit of a different segment I'm starting this second hour off with, but it's actually my treat. The Houston Astros, and I mentioned this briefly yesterday, the Houston Astros, of course, have won the World Series. But there's a guy who's a part of the organization that's one of my best friends. We went to college together. His name is Kyle Hamsher. We have Kyle on the line. Kyle, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Paul. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. So Kyle is the senior manager of entertainment for the Houston Astros. And this is fantastic because, you are one of your duties is that you're the mascot down there. You are the mascot orbit for the Houston Astros. And so you're also from the state of Arkansas. This program is heard across the state of Arkansas. You are, extremely successful. And I just wonder if you could share with us a little bit about what it was like being a part of a world champion organization.
Oh, my goodness. It is absolutely unbelievable. I've really been trying to figure out the best way to put into words really just kind of what this, not just this past week, but really, this past month, this past year, this past season, ultimately just this point in my career, really what it's meant. I've been just inundated with text messages and calls and Facebook posts and all that kind of stuff. And I posted some things here and there, but I just have yet to sit down and really put into words ultimately what it feels like. But even, what's kind of funny is even just walking around the office today, it's been almost a full calendar week since we actually won the World Series. And it's still kind of business as usual with the exception of, there's a championship here. Someone told me earlier this morning, I couldn't help but laugh. They said, you look a little bit different today. I said, really, what do you mean? They said, you look like a champion. And so, there's definitely just an aura of pride, of victory. There's definitely a different feel, not just in the office, really, but in this city and in this community. And I would ultimately say maybe in the state, because I didn't realize this until last week, that this is the first time the state of Texas has actually won a World Series. Not just the Astros, but the state of Texas.
Wow. Yeah, that certainly is, even more history that you've been a part of. So Kyle, tell us tell the audience a little bit about, where you came from. A lot of people probably don't realize how hard it can be to break in, to being a mascot for some of these professional teams. Now, I know you started, in Arkansas when you were in high school. Talk about that. And then you went to Arkansas State. And tell us a little bit about how it was a weird time at Arkansas State. You had the NCAA saying you can no longer use the Indian mascot. The imagery is what they were deeming it offensive. And so A-State had to kind of go with a non-conventional character. So tell us a little bit about your journey.
Sure. So I was born and raised in Arkansas. I grew up in the same house in Jacksonville for 22 years of my life, up until I left home and entered the workforce. I began in high school, started my senior year. I went to, at the time, was North Pulaski High School. As recently as about a year or two ago, Jacksonville created its own school district, and so that school, as it were, is no more. It's now just all Jacksonville High School. So at the time, it was North Pulaski. I was a Falcon. And ironically enough, the guy who got me into mascotting many, many years ago, the suit that I wore was the same one that he had. So it was over 8 years old, really quite literally on its last leg. And so I started literally from the bottom. Started my senior year in high school. From there, I took a job with the Arkansas Twisters, who were an arena football team back in the day. I worked with them for 5 years during the summer. So I started my senior year in high school and finished with them my senior year in college, and also did the Arkansas Travelers baseball team for one summer after my senior year of high school, and then sporadically that next summer. But specifically, the story that I'm sure that most people are particularly interested in is ultimately how I came to be the character at Arkansas State. So at the time, as you had mentioned, it was a really interesting transition time for ASU. There was all of this talk about, are we going to change the mascot? Are we getting a new mascot? What's going on? And truthfully, hindsight being what it was, I think you'd agree, it was very preliminary talk because the mascot didn't even get officially changed until about 5 or 6 years later from that time. But I had enrolled at Arkansas State, had a full ride academic scholarship, and so that's ultimately what originally led to that decision. And originally my plan was just to go the first 2 years, get my basics out of the way, and then transfer to a school that had a mascot so I could continue my career. As fate would have it, I heard through the grapevine, I believe it was my father that actually called me and told me that ASU had actually come up with a mascot. And I was like, oh, really? No way. And so I got on the internet and looked it up, saw the character, was quite an interesting design.
It was, wasn't it? For those of you that don't know, the design he's talking about, they named him Red, and he kind of looked like, kind of a Gumby-like character. He was compared to
Gumby, Doug Funny, the Slim Jim guy. I mean, he was bright red, little bitty eyes, a big old nose, 7-inch tall dreadlocks on his head. Just a really interesting looking character. And so, but I connected with the school and asked if they had a performer, and they hadn't had a performer yet. And as a matter of fact, they were hosting an event in Little Rock that weekend for the athletic department, and asked if that could, if I could attend and that be my tryout. And so I was like, yeah, sure. So literally, it was just a glad-handing event with the athletic director and different dignitaries and stuff like that. And so I just worked in the room for about an hour, and that's how I got the gig. And so
wow.
I was the original performer for Red at Arkansas State University. And, I was excited. I was jazzed. I was fresh out of high school, going to college. And I finally get to be an official college mascot. I don't have to worry about transferring and all that kind of stuff. And I was so excited. And literally the night before the first football game, I was at a friend's house who was there. I believe she was a junior. And I was like, oh, man, I'm so excited about the football game. It's going to be awesome. Like, yeah, well, a lot of people aren't really excited about this character. And I was like, really? What? Why? And, there was still, hey, we're Arkansas State. We're the Indian family. That's our mascot. Mm-hmm. And to their credit, I know that the athletic department was pretty sensitive to that, even going so far as to label Red a spirit character as opposed to an actual mascot. But nonetheless, the welcome that I received that first football game, I don't even know if you can classify it as a welcome.
So let me give a testimony here. Okay, we're talking
sure.
Full disclosure. My friend Kyle Hamsher, he's now the senior manager of entertainment for the Houston Astros. They just won a World Series. So, I mean, I was in college with you at the time, and I was born and raised in Jonesboro. And when the NCAA stepped in and the university did what they did, people were furious. And so to see some Gumby-looking character come out was, just like you said, it was not a warm reaction. It was not a warm welcome. However, okay, you got to understand something, folks. This is how talented the man that you're listening, not me, but Kyle, the man that's on the program now, this is how talented he is, because by the end of the 4 years, before they switched officially to the Red Wolves, he made this character his own. I mean, it was amazing. The physical comedy, the minutia of this movement or that movement that can communicate like so many vast ideas to an entire stadium of people. So I just want everybody to know that was what was so amazing about it. You taking this character that nobody liked and you made it into something great because you were the person behind the costume.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would say one of my proudest moments, truthfully, up until about last week, was what you mentioned, the beginning and the end of that 4 years, because I started my very first football game going into a stadium greeted by tens of thousands of boos and jeers and everything else. And my very last basketball game, they honored me center court presented me with a game ball, thanked me for my service, as it were, and I left the court with a standing ovation.
Yeah.
And so that was one of the really great apex moments of my career.
So how did that? Because you get out of school, you go work for the Carolina Panthers hockey team down in Fort Lauderdale. That must have been a pretty
Florida Panthers. Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. What did I say?
You said Carolina.
I'm sorry.
A couple borders north.
Yeah. Sorry, the Florida Panthers hockey team. You go work for them, but talk a little bit about that, because you eventually get a call from the Houston Astros, and it was a similar situation where it was a character that people weren't really familiar with.
Sure. Yeah. So I worked in hockey for 5 years. That was the first job I took right out of college. Luckily, I was able to nab a position so quickly because, as you had mentioned previously, this really is a very competitive industry. You have to realize that there's literally around approximately 100 jobs that even exist in this profession, and that profession being a quote-unquote professional mascot with each team. And in a very good year, there might be 4, maybe 5, possibly half a dozen openings in a year. So I was able to nab that position with the Florida Panthers. I had about 6 different openings that year that I participated in, and these were the ones that gave me an offer. So I worked for them for 5 years. Due to the NHL work stoppage in 2012, I was unfortunately on the not so good end of that, and found myself looking for work about this time 5 years ago. And truthfully, man, I would say it was by divine intervention. My wife and I are just walking along in the park one day, and I get a call, and it's a Houston number, and I don't really recognize it. So I pick it up, and lo and behold, it's the president and CEO of the Houston Astros wanting to talk to see if I might be interested in coming to work for them. And at the time, unbeknownst to me, the team was in a complete rebuild. They had 100 lost seasons after 100 lost seasons. They were rebuilding everything from the ground up, not just the team, but also the brand. So what came with that is they got a new logo, got a new brand, they had a new owner. Our owner, Jim Crane, was fresh off his first year with the team, and so they were really starting to stir things up. And so they unveiled, I wouldn't say a new logo, but in reality it was kind of an old logo. They went back to their roots. They went back to the orange H star that had graced the team much during the kind of their heyday. And along with that, they brought back an old mascot character, which was Orbit. So Orbit was with the team all throughout the 90s, from 1990 all the way to 1999. And when the team moved from the Astrodome to where we are now at Minute Maid Park, they had a different mascot, different logo, different team. And so basically they kind of went back to the glory days of what the team was like. And so they called me to see if I would be interested in helping to build that program, and said, hey, are you up for the challenge? I was like, well, I've introduced the character before, and if I can do that one, I can most certainly do this one. And so the great thing about the situation that I was put in here in Houston was that everybody already loved Orbit. It was very nostalgic for a lot of people to bring that character back, because many of them, I get people come up to me all the time like, man, I remember you from when I was a kid. And, these people are 30-something, 40 years old. They're way older than I am. And, but they're talking to the characters. And so it was much, much easier to create success with that character simply because it was already in the heart of the city. But on top of that, too, the Astros are just a fantastic organization that have been really, really great about providing me the resources that I need to be successful, and really providing the team and everybody the resources they need to be successful, which is what I feel led to our World Series championship.
You had a more of a warm welcome. You're almost over prepared. Your experience at Arkansas State and what you did there actually over prepared you for what you did down in Houston. I think that's great. Yeah. We have a few photos here because I can't talk. I mean, you're in the Houston area. We can't talk about, I can't interview without going over what happened with the flooding in Houston. And we've got some signs here, people saying I survived Hurricane Harvey, and then they got it crossed out, and then they say I survived Game 5. We have some people saying, from underwater to on top of the world. Kyle, can you just talk a little bit about what has this done for the city of Houston in light of all of that damage and destruction?
You asked me that question, and honestly, I get chills just thinking about it, because 2 months ago, I mean, this city was just in a literal crisis. Luckily, my family and I were in a place that, we managed to stay high and dry, but just what was going on around us, we were just glued to the TV. It started, Hurricane Harvey was a very slow hurricane, and unfortunately, we weren't even affected by the winds. It was the water that really did damage to Houston. I can't even remember the number. It was some trillion gallons of water were dumped on Houston, but this city was literally underwater. We had a series planned at home for that weekend that week that we were supposed to return, and unfortunately we weren't able to play those games. And so we had actually relocated to Tropicana Field in Tampa, where the Tampa Bay Rays play. When we finally were able to come back, the stadium was maybe about a quarter full, and it was a weekend game against the New York Mets. And so just the city was just devastated, and that's putting it mildly. It was unbelievable. And I think that everybody knew that this team wanted to play for this city in an effort to give them hope. And so we developed the Houston Strong mantra, and they wore those patches on their jerseys. And that's really ultimately what ended up happening, is that people had something to put their hope in, because truthfully, I mean, there's still so much to be done in the aftermath of this hurricane in terms of recovery efforts and all that kind of stuff. So it was really kind of great. Our president, Reed Ryan, says that we're in the business of bringing joy to people's lives. And what I saw when I participated in the parade, in the victory parade last Friday, was so much happiness. I've never seen so much happiness in my entire life. That is when the moment became real to me. And it just hit me like a ton of bricks, just the emotion that I saw. So many people, hundreds of thousands of people turned up for this parade. It was between 750,000 and 1 million people in the city of Houston, and every single one of them was so happy. And just to see that many people go from just the utter devastation that this city saw 2 months ago to being where we are now, it was just unbelievable.
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I don't have this photo, I think, in the rotation right now, but I saw one where a guy's clearly, watching the World Series, celebrating, but he's in like a completely gutted house, no carpet, no sheetrock on the walls and everything else, and you just think, wow, how many other people were like that? How many other people were sitting there, with nothing, but they're rooting, for the Astros? It's an amazing story.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And on top of that, too, one thing that I told my staff, I have a number of people that I work with and that work under me during the game, is, I told them really the magnitude and ultimately the power that they have during these postseason games, particularly in the last games that we hosted at home, which were games 4 and 5. I said, you realize the power that you have over the people out there. Keep in mind, some people are still affected by Hurricane Harvey. Some people may have gotten these tickets as a donation to, get a break from just the devastation that they're still facing. And when you work in entertainment, unfortunately, you can't control what happens on the field, but you can control whether or not somebody has a good time. And that's what I tried to tell my staff, is that you have the power in your hands, literally, to get the fans engaged and entertained and happy and excited. And I strongly believe there is a such thing as home field advantage. And whenever that becomes a reality, whenever you are able to get the fans excited and they get excited about the game, I strongly believe that it does have an effect on the players. And then it has an effect on their performance. And we all saw what happened in Game 5.
Yeah.
Going into extra innings, just hitting it. I said that Game 2 was probably the most exciting World Series game that I had ever seen. That was true up until Game 5. And being right there in the heart of it was something that I'll never forget.
We're talking with my good friend Kyle Hamsher. He is the senior manager of entertainment for the Houston Astros, and we're about out of time, Kyle. But I got to ask you a question. Some of your most popular videos as the character Orbit are the ones where the security guards you start messing with the security guards that keep people off the field, and then the security guard, one in particular, they start breakdancing. And so I've got to know. Are these real security guards that are also amazing dancers? Because some of them look like they are bouncers. That they are security. What are your thoughts?
Well, it's funny you say that, Paul, because it looks like I'm right about out of time, too. So it looks like I'm not going to be able to answer that question for you today.
All righty. Kyle Hamsher, I appreciate it, sir. Give my best to your family. Congratulations on being a member of a world champion organization, sir. I appreciate it.
All right. Thanks, buddy. Appreciate the time.
All righty. Folks, we got to take a break. Back in just a moment.